Look for places full of chaos, pain, and screaming. That's where the eight-faced are most likely to appear. Cracked loved disorder, the same wildness that defined this realm. I called it chaos. The other creatures, I named them too. The kind of chaos Cracked craved came from movement, emotion, and sound. They appeared where there was noise, especially from small, helpless creatures that cried and moved around. They nurtured them, fed them, gave them water, and then deliberately provoked them just to make them cry again. To Cracked, it was a symphony of pleasure. So my child will cry herself hoarse. We have to do something now. Saiga stood up. No, don't. You need to rest. Cracked won't let their musical instrument wear out. They know how to take care of it. This isn't the first time I've seen them raise a child. Where were the mothers? Why didn't they save their kids? It's not that easy. Cracked showed up in chaotic places. Maybe the mothers weren't there. Maybe they died. Maybe they were too weak to chase after their children. You're one of the brave ones. You must have gone through hell for your daughter to survive this far. The seer looked at me with eyes full of sympathy. I met her gaze and simply said, "Thank you. For now, you should rest and get familiar with this place. I'll go outside and find something to eat. I'm coming with you." The seer agreed to let me go with her. Outside the cave was a forest shrouded in damp fog. The trees leaned, brittle and dry. The grass barely reached our knees, all of it dark brown and dying. Before we left, the seer packed up all the remaining food, tossed me my axe, and took a bow she had fashioned from broken branches. She told me that once we left, the cave might be taken over, so I should prepare to settle somewhere else. This world was designed to make you feel lost and uneasy. It stirred fear from the deepest parts of you. You never knew what you were facing. You never knew when you would die. Mist enveloped us layer by layer. The further we walked, the more the cave faded from view. I was now standing in a field of waist-high ferns, the forest behind me. I didn't dare turn too much, afraid I'd lose my bearings. Then I heard a cry. It came from ahead within the thick mist. I stumbled forward and whispered, "Angel. My child. She's there." "No, that's a child cry tree. I've made the same mistake before." The child cry trees let out sounds like that whenever something gets close. Cracked loved forests filled with child cry trees. So that means my child is there? I ran toward the sound. My heart pounded fast. In this movement, every sound could be hers. Through the mist, the image of a massive tree trunk slowly appeared. On its branches were cracked, four-legged creatures clinging and swinging from limb to limb. As I got closer, they hissed in anger, then slowly backed away and disappeared into the fog. I chased after them, until a hand grabbed my arm and pulled me back. "Saiga, they're not the ones keeping your child. You said Cracked took her. Why shouldn't I chase them? Look here. Look into my eyes." She forced me to meet her gaze, into those murky black eyes. I scowled and shoved her hand away, raising my axe in warning. The seer took a blow to the head from me and stumbled back, holding her skull. I began to run when she called out behind me. "I've seen where we save your child. But we need to gather enough healing berries before we can help her." "I've seen where we save your child. But we need to gather enough healing berries before we can help her." I stopped, turning my attention back to the seer. She had crouched down, pulling a handful of purple berries from her pouch and stuffing them into her mouth. She panted, staring up at me. The haze in her eyes slowly lifted. She took a deep breath and said gently, "I know you're desperate to save your daughter. But please, listen to me. We need these berries, to heal, to prepare weapons, to ready ourselves for what's ahead." I pointed toward the mist that had swallowed the Cracked. "They're not dangerous. There are two of us. We can take them. They seem scared anyway." "Well, the problem isn't them," she said. "It's what's holding your daughter." I frowned. As if testing my patience, the seer stepped back into the fern field. her hand sinking into the underbrush. When she pulled it out, nestled in her palm were the same purple berries she had eaten earlier. I call this purple ber. It could help us heal quickly. But to heal, one must eat a whole handful like this. The seer wrapped the leaves of the purple ber into a tight little bundle and stuffed them inside. She divided them into portions and slipped them into her leather pouch. Gather as many of these as you can so you won't be exhausted during the fight. Pick them and pack them here. Do it, and then I'll tell you where your child is. While I did as she said, my axe lying at my feet, easy to grab, the seer began to speak. Right now Cracked isn't holding your child. 8 faces did. A spider with 8 faces, 16 legs, enormous. It had a pouch on its abdomen where it stored your daughter as food. It also had a brood of spiderlings following it, which made it nearly impossible to approach. We'd have to find a way to lure the mother away from its nest and then slip a hand into the pouch beneath its abdomen. Difficult, yes. We'd need a few burst fruits, bows and arrows, and we'd only touch 8 faces when it was already dead. Do you understand? She asked. I nodded, though fear had already rooted itself in me. I nodded. We kept wandering, picking more clusters of purple ber. As I held the berries cupped in my palm, a strange, restless feeling rose inside me. Their usefulness was so perfect it made me believe they existed solely to sustain those trapped here. Purple ber offered hope, something to cling to, a reminder that humans could still fight back against the world's destruction. Or maybe they existed only to keep the lost from destroying themselves when everything seemed to collapse. My eyes drifted to the seer, wondering why she still remained. With all her knowledge of this place, she should have left long ago. Perhaps finding the connected wasn't as easy as she had made it sound. Every so often, the seer reminded me to watch my feet, because here there were plants that could crawl up your legs, slip into open wounds, and root themselves inside you. We moved on to another place to find the burst fruits. We came to a field of black plants with leaves shaped like angry human faces. The seer stopped me before I stepped into them. She crouched, broke off a branch, and poked at the smallest plant farthest from us. The stem snapped, the ground trembled, and an explosion went off, ringing in my ears and scattering dirt everywhere. As I recovered from the shock, I carefully stepped back and gripped my axe a little tighter. Was the seer trying to attack me? Was she planning to kill me before I could find my child? She was a stranger to me. Why would she help me? Was she just using me to reach the connected and get herself back home? But how could I possibly be of use to her? Deep down I knew I should be grateful for her bold help. We should be united, not fighting or doubting each other on the path back. The seer smiled and pointed at the plant nearest to us. She repeated, "Burst. As long as you don't break the stem, the root underground won't explode. Our job is to dig the root out carefully. It will be used as a trap for the spiderlings." Once again we worked the earth with painstaking care. It was then I realized why the seer had told me to gather purple ber first. I triggered one of the roots by mistake. Pain tore through my leg as blood soaked my skin. I ate a handful of purple ber and sat in pain while my bone knit itself back together. I didn't know if this pain was worse than the pain of giving birth to Angel, only that each throb in my leg made me ache for my daughter. I had been separated from her so long, and I didn't know how time worked here. But I had to face the truth. A 2-month-old baby could not survive without her mother. As I sat waiting for my leg to heal, I watched the seer carefully placing the gathered roots into a large basket. I asked quietly, "Will you go back with me?" The seer shook her head. "I will help you, but I like it here. I named everything, and I know this place better than the real world. She touched the ground with her hand. "I love this place." It was strange to love something that could not move or give, that existed beyond need and instinct. That was when I looked around this space again. My leg had healed. I had been wounded, and then I healed. I had lost my child, and I was finding my way to her again. Now all I needed was to hold her in my arms, and everything would finally be perfect. After we finished gathering the burst fruits, we sat down to eat, then worked together to carve long spears with stone tips sharpened to a fine point. The seer was skilled at such things. She told me what to do and where to find better tools. Yet I was still a mother, and my thoughts turned constantly toward my child. I waited anxiously for the moment to bring her back, trying not to rush, because the seer seemed to know exactly what she was doing. We took short naps, sleeping in turns. While watching the spider cave the seer had foretold earlier, we encountered an older woman who made me call her Mrs. Pepper. Her hair was silver white, wild and tangled around her wrinkled face, making it look small, like a shriveled, sorrowful chili pepper. She emerged from the thick fog, looking just as startled to see us as we were to see her. The seer stepped forward, nodded in greeting, and introduced herself. She was the first to speak. "Where are you going?" "To find those things, to go home," the woman replied. "Someone told me that's the way. What about you two? Want to come along?" "I'm helping this girl Saiga to get her child back," said the seer. "A spider called 8 Faces is keeping the baby. Its brood is in that cave. If you can, wait for Saiga to come with us. She wants to go home too." Mrs. Pepper nodded and extended her hand. The seer took it. They didn't shake hands the usual way. Instead, they stared into each other's eyes as if locked in a pointless game of who blinks first. When they finally let go, Mrs. Pepper spoke first. "I can see people's pasts when I touch them. I've seen yours and know you don't mean to harm me. I'll cooperate. I hope you'll use your gift of foresight in the same way. The future is uncertain. It keeps changing," the seer replied, her tone cooling. She turned to me and called, "Saiga." I took Mrs. Pepper's hand, not even hesitating to meet her gaze. I didn't know if she truly saw what I had done, and I didn't care whether she wanted to help me or become some hero reclaiming justice for my husband's family. Maybe she would tell the seer that my child wasn't worth saving. But to my surprise, Pepper said nothing. The only sign she gave was a nod before turning to the seer to ask how we would retrieve the baby. The seer said, "She was too old. We couldn't take her with us. It would be cumbersome. I only wanted everything to be quick and simple." The thought flashed through my mind, but I did not voice it aloud. Then she suddenly shrugged off the shawl around her shoulders and waved it toward a creeping vine that had begun to coil around my leg. I hadn't even realized something was grabbing my ankle. The vine recoiled and slithered back toward the ground. It turned out Pepper had a scarf that made all the creatures in that world instinctively fear her. They backed away whenever she flicked the cloth at them. "You can give the scarf to me. I'll return it to you afterward," I offered, not at all interested in the thing. "No," Pepper answered coldly, and I did not want to argue with her about it. Fine, if she wanted to gamble her life for the daughter of a stranger, she could. I certainly did not care what an old woman needed while my child was in danger. The 3 of us returned to the task of rescuing the child. We hid behind the trunk of a large child-cried tree, crouching low. The 8 Faces were in a cavern some distance away. In front of the cave, tiny spiders as large as a full-grown chihuahua clung to the rock face, weaving a web around the cave mouth. It seemed they had sensed us already. Fog swirled around us, making the cave and our party seem to draw closer together. The trees' cries mingled with the eerie hush of the place. The seer threw burst fruits into the writhing mass of 8 Faces. They screamed. Their legs flailed as their fellows howled in pain. While they writhed, the seer grabbed another handful of bursts. When some of the 8 Faces discovered the source of the attack, they scrambled back toward our hiding place. I raised my bow and aimed at the ones running toward me, while Pepper threw bursts. We had to conserve them. We did not have many left. We still needed to force the mother out, and we needed to find where Angel was. Then, through the dust of bursting bursts and the carcasses of the baby spiders, a huge spider appeared. 8 faces, 16 legs that almost hid its body. I gripped my axe. Pepper ran ahead. She held the scarf out to clear a path so I could charge forward. The 2 of us struck straight for the mother. One of its mouths gaped open, and its sharp teeth snapped at my throat. One of the spider's legs flung Pepper aside. The seer reminded me about the purple bear. I crawled under the spider and accidentally slid into one of its sacs. It ground its body along the floor, scraping my back across the dirt. I pulled out a handful of purple bear and shoved some into my mouth until I cleared my head a little. I reached for whatever was pressed against me. Then I realized it was my child. It was mine. I gathered her to my chest and fed her the purple bear from my mouth. Only when she cried out did I feel relief and grip the axe that had wounded the monster. I tried to lever the blade upright and thrust with all my strength. The spider writhed savagely. Burst fruits exploded nearby, spider shrieks filled the air, but my child's cry was the clearest sound in my ears. At some point the axe had cut into the spider's belly. It seemed to be searching for shelter to avoid further blows. I decided to finish it. One arm held my child. With the other I kept hacking into the spider's flesh and entrails. When its body no longer heaved, when its muscles finally conceded defeat, I pulled my child out and carried her away. Pepper stood beside me. The spider's 8-faced body lay smashed, and the surrounding spiders were dead too. No baby lived without its mother, not even spiders. You were exhausted. Give me the child. I would hold her while you crawled out, she said, holding her trembling hands out toward me. The seer hovered nearby, hesitating, ready to help me up. Should I trust them? Yes, I trusted the seer and Pepper. They had helped me without asking for anything in return, so I handed Angel to Pepper, dropped the axe, and took the seer's hand. That was a mistake. Pepper threw a burst into the place where I was trapped. It exploded horribly. Fortunately, that was when the seer pulled me free, but part of my leg and one of my arms were injured. I lay moaning in the smoke and dust. The seer did the same. We watched Pepper wrap the child in the scarf and ride away on the back of a white-furred beast. The seer ate purple bear, then poured handfuls of the berries into my mouth. After swallowing them, I no longer cared to chew. Memories of Pepper's betrayal, of Angel slipping from my arms, and of the child being taken right before my eyes played on repeat like a film, reminding me that I had made a foolish decision. I should have foreseen it. I should have kept my child with me, kept her in her mother's arms. I made up my mind and shut my eyes, letting the night swallow me as it always did. When I opened my eyes, I faced thick fog and the sound of water trickling at my ear. The smell of smoke lingered. I sat up and turned toward it. A blaze was roaring, sparks popping, and the seer watched my every move. You're awake. We should figure out how to get you and your child back to the old world together, she said. My daughter. I began. Pepper kept the child, but we will negotiate with her. You can go with her back to that world. Why negotiate? I asked. Because what she did made sense. You cannot kill your husband's entire family because you thought they took your child. Marrying a 14-year-old to a 30-year-old was disgusting, wrong, and vile. I know that, but I do not sympathize with murderers. Pepper told me what happened earlier. I will take you back to the old world so you can face what you did. She thinks children should not be near killers. I believe the child should be with her mother. You love her. So the seer and Pepper were hypocrites. They helped me for themselves, to show they understood me, to show pity. It was obvious they would be the ones to decide what I would do. They had taken my daughter from me and used the child for their purposes. My stomach tightened with anger. I wanted to give each of them an open wound on the head, but I could not. My negligence had cost me my child twice. I could not be careless any longer. I had to be careful, think strategically, and make one clear goal. Bring my child back into her mother's arms. If you're feeling better, let's get ready to meet Pepper. I'd guess she's out looking for the connected right now. The seer stood up and pulled me along. I followed her sluggishly, gripping my axe. She carried a spear with a stone blade. As we walked, she said to me, I need you to stop attacking others whenever you feel unsafe. I nodded in agreement, shifting the axe from one hand to the other. My mind was filled only with thoughts of my daughter. What was she doing now? Was she hungry? Ever since I got here, I have lost all sense of time. How many days had passed? What time was it now? What reason did I have to care about what timeline the world out there was stuck in, when here, all I could focus on was what came next? I knew I was on a path to save my daughter, and once I held her in my arms, I could care for her as long as I wanted, without worrying about anyone trying to take her away from me. The seer led me to two creatures as tall as I was. They had snow-white fur, large noses, faces like bears, and 4 limbs, each twice the size of my arms. I saw them surround the seer, sniffing her all over. These are foot pads. They're gentle. They can take us to Pepper, the seer said, stroking one of them gently. You tamed it yourself? I asked, cautiously reaching to touch its head. It growled, and I raised my axe, only to be met with a sharp glare from the seer. The creature rubbed its head against me, and I lowered the axe. The seer replied, yeah, they're easy to tame. They eat grass, prefer to stay in herds, and love being petted. They run fast too. That was why she said these creatures could take us to Pepper. After petting them for a bit, we climbed onto their backs. I strapped my axe beside me, and on the other side, I carried a pouch filled with purple ber seeds. That was all I needed. Taking Burst's roots only brought more trouble. The footpad crouched low, bending its back legs, stretching its front ones, and then launching forward the moment the seer gave the signal. Wind brushed against my face. The forest of dead trees blurred behind us, streaking into gray lines. I smiled. I hadn't felt this cool and free in a long time. I wished I could enjoy it like a normal person, someone who didn't have to fight to gain their daughter back. But as a mother, I had to think of her every hour, every minute. Every time I stopped thinking of her, I felt I had failed her. We stopped in another forest, one filled with child-cried trees. The sound of crying children echoed, pounding harder and harder against my chest. The 2-foot pads walked side by side. We stood next to a massive child-cried tree. A hole in its trunk was large enough to swallow me whole. One misstep and I'd fall in, never to escape. Above me, a dark branch stretched out. A scorpion was perched on it. I reached up to see if it would climb onto my hand, but it stung me with its tail. I ate 3 purple ber berries and felt a bit better. Then I reached out again. It stung me once more. I ate more berries. It wasn't until my hand was speckled with blood that the scorpion realized it couldn't scare me. It crawled onto my hand, slid into my sleeve, and clung tightly to my forearm. We've been here a long time, I muttered, resting my hand back on the footpad's neck, gripping its thick fur. We have to wait for the connected to arrive. Can you pull out your teeth? The seer asked. Why would I do that? The connected don't have teeth. You'll have to pull out yours and fit them into its crooked, toothless jaw. I'll try. Everything that happened next began with the sound of wind, or something that sounded like it. Then the ground began to shake. A swarm of creatures, about waist high, came crawling toward us. The entire mass of caramel-colored connected looked like a river of coffee, mottled with blackened patches as if they had been burned. Then I saw Pepper riding a footpad, chasing the swarm. She wasn't at all surprised to see us. The seer and I helped her isolate one of the connected from the herd, herding it toward her. The seer did the talking. Please let her come with you. She has come to understand the weight of her guilt. Get lost, you savages, Pepper snapped, steering her footpad to ram into the seer. She was thrown off to the side. I followed her, keeping a safe distance, just close enough to see that my child was wrapped in a piece of cloth, held tightly against her chest. My stomach churned. My hands itched. But I held myself back and tried to speak calmly. I truly regret everything I've done. Please, give me back my daughter. Every child deserves a mother. I will return and take responsibility for all the things I've done. Pepper didn't care. She leapt down and grabbed the connected who had been trying to run back to the herd. I saw her pull a white tooth from her pocket, probably her own. She forced the connected's mouth open, pinned it down, and began pushing the tooth into its bare gum. I was thankful she knew what to do. I wouldn't have known how. I stepped forward, keeping a hand's length between us. My eyes stayed locked on my child, and tears began to fall. The seer appeared beside me and gently pushed my back forward. When I lifted my gaze to Pepper's face, she was watching me cautiously. My voice trembled as I pleaded, "Please take good care of her. Her name is Angel. You can leave me here, but don't abandon her out there in the world." Pepper narrowed her eyes. She held the connected in one arm, and in the other, the child wrapped carefully in a scarf. Step by step, she came closer, as if to let me see my little angel one last time. My left hand reached out and brushed the fabric around her. It trembled beneath my touch, and tears streamed down my face. With that same hand, I grasped the seer's arm and pulled her closer to me. I choked out, "Look, seer, my baby is as lovely as an angel." People usually smile when they see a baby. I didn't know if the seer smiled. Without warning, Pepper's eyes rolled back. Her whole body stiffened, then convulsed as if something inside her was tearing free. That was when I realized my new scorpion friend had bitten Pepper the same way it had bitten me earlier. The seer caught her, and I snatched the connected from her arms. "Saiga, give her the berries," the seer urged. "No," I said, just as I shoved the connected's mouth, with Pepper's tooth inside it, into the seer's hands. Her eyes turned pitch black. She released Pepper, sobbing something I didn't care to hear. I pushed her away. Without the seer's support, Pepper collapsed onto the ground. Angel, startled, let out a soft, wailing cry. I quickly lifted her into my arms and tore Pepper's scarf away to wrap around her tiny body. When I looked back, Pepper was struggling to swallow a handful of berries to heal herself. I grabbed my axe and struck her over and over again. The face of the woman was no longer a face. The seer began to fade away before my eyes. I stood there, panting. One arm held my daughter, the other gripped the blood-soaked axe. Anyone who tried to take a child from their mother deserved to die. I never once felt remorse for erasing those who tried to take away what was rightfully mine. As for the seer, she didn't deserve to die. But if she wanted to go back, then let her go back. I held my child close in my arms, Pepper's scarf draped over my shoulder. I fastened leads to 3-foot pads. I named them 1, 2, and 3. I rode on 1. The other 2 followed behind. My daughter reached out and touched her mother's face, as if she missed me just as much as I missed her. I fed her. I gave her berries. I held her and kissed her. After some time, she began to say, "Mama." And so, we lived happily ever after.